But we want to start with a very special individual, really someone who has stepped up to the plate, a typical fourth-turning leader who is now at the forefront of American jurisprudence in defending the rights of the American people to a fair election. The Honorable Lin Wood from Georgia. Lin, thank you very much for joining us, and thank you for everything you're doing to defend people's rights. Now, in all the ruckus that went on today, I don't think it was duly noted enough that your lawsuit's actually been filed at the Supreme Court. Can you update us?
I can, and thanks for having me on, Steve. I filed a lawsuit several days after the November 3rd election when I found out that a backroom deal had been cut with the Democratic Party and the Georgia Secretary of State back in March that dramatically changed the rules on absentee mail ballots. And that was never approved by the state legislature. Many legislators didn't know about it until I filed my lawsuit. At any rate, I filed it. The judge did not grant a temporary injunction when I tried to stop the recount, which I said was illegal because the election was illegal. And then I took it to the 11th Circuit, and they said I didn't have standing. I do. A voter has standing because, in my case, the rules of the Secretary of State were not approved by the legislature, and that's unconstitutional and unlawful. So it diluted my vote, and it will have diluted again in the runoff on January the 5th, and it denied me equal protection. I filed a writ of certiorari last night. It was hand-delivered by hard copy today at 12:31, and I have a lot of hope that the court will take it.
Let me ask you, this is your lawsuit gets to the heart of this kind of Stacey Abrams secret deal that was approved by Roethlisberger and is trying to be hidden. That's why they don't want this to come forward. Is this the only place it's currently being argued? Because to me, if we don't get in back of this and bring it to the forefront and have a ruling on this unconstitutional secret deal, you're going to be stealing elections in Georgia from here on in. The 5th, I don't even know how you put up a defense on the 5th of January. This is what I keep saying. Until Lin Wood gets into court and gets a ruling here, or the General Assembly calls a special session and they just wimped out today, showed complete cowardice down there in Athens and other places, the delegates after the president talked to them. Is the only place we're going to get this in your lawsuit at the Supreme Court?
Well, the issue in my lawsuit is going to be I believe, the key. Texas, the state of Texas, filed a lawsuit or filed a petition in the Supreme Court today or last night also, and they're taking, in essence, the same position versus several other states claiming that it diluted the state of Texas voters' vote. So if you look at the swing states, you're going to find that in almost all of them there were deals cut. Sometimes the governor changed the rules. Sometimes they said the county voting districts could change the rules. But they slipped this in several key states without it being approved by the legislatures because they knew in the open discussion with sunlight on it, the state legislators would not agree to it. So they did try to slip it in the dead of night. Perkins Coie, Hillary Clinton's law firm, was involved in the Georgia deal. They were involved in every one of these deals, and they are involved in every lawsuit where we are trying to find the court rule that we can look at these machines and look at these actual written ballots. They're fighting us tooth and nail. What are they hiding? I'll tell you what they're hiding. They're hiding clear evidence of fraud, but despite their efforts, Sidney Powell has developed a mountain of admissible by affidavit, video, testimony that shows this election was stolen by fraud. It cannot stand, Steve, not in America.
So tell me, what's your overall view of the Texas litigation? You're focused on one state and trying to get this overturned in the state of Georgia. From a legal perspective, what do you think of what Texas did? Because it kind of hit like a bombshell today.
I think Texas' theory is the same as mine. I think it's solid. I think there's Supreme Court law is there. It's what Justice Alito relied on when he issued his first order to Pennsylvania a couple of weeks ago. Only the state legislatures can change the rules of a state election on a federal issue, such as the President of the United States. It's a federal election conducted by the state, but it has to be done by the legislature. That's what Texas is saying. That's what I'm saying. The question is, who has standing? I haven't looked into the issue of Texas in terms of standing, but I know that the people have standing. A voter has standing. It was my vote that got diluted. It was my equal protection that got violated because they made it easier to vote by absentee in terms of lax verification of signatures. I had to go through 3 verifications. I had to sign my name. I had to give them a proof of my ID with a picture. They ran my signature against the original voter registration. They didn't do that on the absentee ballots. That's an unequal protection issue, and the dilution of the vote issue is equally solid. This was an illegal election in Georgia. I believe the court has to rule that it was unlawful and illegal, and then Georgia is going to have to get its legislature back into session to deal with it, or they'll disenfranchise every voter in Georgia. Georgia's about to bust down here, Steve. This governor and the Secretary of State and the Lieutenant Governor are corrupt. They've been corrupted by Chinese money, and they are not representing the people's interest in Georgia. They're representing the people's interest in Beijing, China. It will not stand in the state of Georgia.
As bad as your 3 senior executives have been, and it's been pretty embarrassing to see them on CNN and MSNBC night after night with the smirks and the smugs, making these proclamations against the people of Georgia, against the deplorables, against the Trump movement, the people of the United States, voters, and the president. The legislature today, both in Athens with the Senate and then Ralston and the leadership that the president actually spent time on the phone with, are you stunned at how cowardly they've been? And we've heard the word is that the reason they don't want to go forward, they're afraid of being doxxed by the left, of being called out by the Atlanta Journal-Constitution and CNN, which is headquartered down in Atlanta. They're just basically afraid of being exposed for standing up to the Constitution by the progressive left. How does that set with you, given all the grief that you've come under?
Well, I can tell you that the legislators know that they're really protected if they look around, because the people in Georgia, we the people, we support them taking action. Here's what happened in Georgia. The Senate, for example, needs 29 votes to call a special session, and then the House, the Speaker of the House, David Ralston, said, well, if the Senate does it, the House will do it. But here's what happened. At a meeting last night where they had 20 senators ready to act, they only needed 9 more. Lieutenant Governor Jeffrey Duncan came in there and he browbeat and bullied those senators, told them they'd lose their committee chairmanships. They'd have no authority under his rules under the new Senate. And he beat them down to where 8 dropped out, down to 12. And then David Ralston, who's also corrupt, Ralston then comes in and says, well, the Senate's not going to do it, so we're not going to do it. It's the people in the Republican Party in Georgia that are sabotaging the efforts of the people to get their election honestly resolved, because Donald Trump won Georgia by a historic landslide. The people know it. They're not going to tolerate these political games being played by the politicians and the officials who've got their own financial interests involved and who've got their own political ambitions involved. These people do not stand with Donald Trump and the people. Their futures in Georgia politics are over.
Lynn, you're at the Supreme Court now today.
Jail, Steve.
Today's the safe harbor. You've got the 14th coming up. Can you give the audience any sense of what you think the timing is going to be of your case in front of the Supreme Court?
Well, the Supreme Court will do what it's going to do when it's going to do it. I'd like to think that they realize this country is on the brink of disaster. This country is divided. China's trying to get us to be divided. They want a civil war in this country. I've never thought this was about an election. I thought this was a color revolution. Part of it was to send COVID over here, create civil unrest in our cities. Then they have a disputed election followed by violence in the streets. That's a color revolution. That's the playbook that's being followed here. So the Supreme Court's going to have to act as soon as possible. those deadlines are not in concrete. They can be changed by the Supreme Court. The only date that's in concrete is January the 20th of 2021.
Lynn, how do people follow you on social media?
Well, I'm on Twitter until they kick me off. I'm at L. Lynn Wood, LLINWOOD. And on Parler, I'm at Linwood, LINWOOD. And I spend a lot of time working on these cases, and I spend a lot of time talking on social media because they put us, Steve, in an echo chamber. The mainstream media is not telling people about the fraud. We've got to get beyond the echo chamber so that the mass of Americans can know that China, combining with other people, stole our election. They're not going to be successful. They're trying to take over our country to get our land because they can't feed their people off their land. It's 20.
Lynn, we gotta bounce. Lynn Wood, the hero that's at the Supreme Court now. Hopefully that case will be heard in the next couple of days. Lynn Wood, you've got a social media handle. Make sure you follow him. His Twitter feed is electric.